If only W.A.C. Bennett were alive to see the benefits of his prescient insight into the need for clean, renewable, and sustainable energy, he wouldn't believe what was happening. See, back in the 1950s, then Premier Bennett attempted to get B.C. Electric to build a hydroelectric dam in B.C. because he didn't want the province to be held hostage to the Columbia River Treaty. B.C. Electric balked at the idea, so the most free enterprise premier in BC did the unexpected. He nationalized the power company and set out to build dams that would supply electricity that would spur economic growth. Bennett Dam opened on September the 12th, 1960, and over the past 61 years, the benefits of clean, reliable, and affordable energy have helped to power the province's economy. Bennett knew that electricity was the oxygen of the modern economy. Little did he know clean, reliable energy would become BC's advantage in the world of Bitcoin mining. Brian Fehr, a BC innovator who is always on the lookout for opportunities in rural and sometimes remote areas, put two and two together and developed a plan that benefits First Nations and has attracted massive investment from Australian Bitcoin mining company Iris Energy. Weeks ago, the partnership officially launched its first of 5 Bitcoin mining centers in BC. The reason BC, says Iris Energy CEO Jason Conroy, is clean, sustainable, and reliable energy, which is exactly what the Bitcoin sector needs. I invited Brian Fehr to join me for a conversation that matters about the electrifying and powerful partnership he has generated that is benefiting BC and rural communities. Brian, welcome. Thanks for coming in and joining me on Conversations That Matter.
Thanks a lot.
How did you happen to identify this opportunity to say, we have what the world needs, especially as we move into everything electrical and the massive amount of energy that data banks and data mining require?
Well, I would like to tell you there was some brilliant move on my part, but there wasn't. I bought what I would call an idle asset in Canal Flats, British Columbia, and I was actually approached by a couple of guys from Kelowna that had built a large cloud server. It's called Rackforce, and Tim DeFore and Brian Fry, and they came and talked to me, and they convinced me that we should start a data center type of an operation, and I knew nothing about it, and so that's how it started. I owned an idled asset, and it had 30 megawatts of power coming into it.
And that had been a lumber asset, had it not?
That was a mill that, in my mind, was started by Crow's Nest Forest Products, then Crestbrook, then Tembec, then Canfor bought it, and Canfor had one too many mills in that valley, and so it became what they would call a distressed asset or an idled asset.
So when you got into this, started to look into this opportunity around creating what is in essence a data bank, how did the pieces start to fall together to make it make sense?
Well, there's no question that Tim DeFore and Brian Fry came to me and convinced me that it made sense. And I was starting to watch what was happening in the world with electricity, and I loved the idea of clean power. You start hearing all the talk about fossil fuel, and you go to Alberta and all the coal is happening, and you go to China, you fly into China and you see the smog and you try to figure out why that's there, and it's obvious to me that we as British Columbia people have an advantage, and so I want to take advantage of that.
One of the other components about what you're doing that I find particularly attractive is that you have, in Canal Flats, you have a relationship with 3 different First Nations, and you have made sure that they are going to benefit from this in an area that doesn't look like there's much else in the way of economic activity.
First of all, it's 4 bands.
Thank you very much.
It's the Ktunaxa Nation that has 4 bands, Kiskanak in Windermere, the Akam in Cranbrook, the Lower Kootenay Band in Creston, and Tobacco Plains in Grassmere. So 4 bands that are all part of the Ktunaxa Nation. And they do have another big thing in that valley, and it's coal, which is tech, and the Ktunaxa is tied to that too. But I had decided, so I built a pretty big company in North America called Bid Group, and Bid Group went from being a little welding shop in Vanderhoof, British Columbia, to $1 billion company in North America with 14 shops. And I had worked 7 years in America and in the South when Trump came in. And I watched it was like watching Fox News every night in my life. And I just got tired. I got tired of not being at home in Canada. I got tired of working 7 days a week. I got tired of just everything that I was doing. And I passed my dad at 59 years old. I passed Dad dying, and all of a sudden it was like, what am I doing? And so I sold my company and I retired. And it was like the worst 3 minutes of my life. And I came back to Canada, which I love, and I had decided a long time before that I was going to move to the East Kootenays. And so I bought the Canal Flats mill off Canfor, an idled asset, and just started to just play around with that. And then these guys came to me with the opportunity. So it kind of fell in my lap, is what I would say.
Why was it so important, though, that you made sure that you had these solid working relationships with the four bands?
So when I came back to British Columbia, I had decided that there was going to be two things that I was going to do. One is I was going to work in the resource sector, and the other is I was going to work with the First Nation. And without trying to get too emotional, I'm 24 years clean and sober. And so working with First Nation, there's a definite correlation there in every band that I go to. And the people who are honest, the chiefs and the town and the band councils that I talk to, always bring that up when I talk to them. They know my story, and we bond over wellness, let's say. So it was a natural fit. I would say that the first 60 years or 59 years of my life, I grew up around First Nations. I knew lots of them in Vanderhoof, whether you're playing fastball, playing hockey, drinking in the bar, fighting outside the bar. No matter what you're doing it together, either together or against with First Nation, right? And it's just a group of people so I have lots of friends in the First Nations, and I decided that this looked like a calling for me, that I was going to the rest of my life work together with First Nation. And it's just grown as fast as anything else I've ever done from Fort Nelson to Cranbrook.
Well, in a conversation that I had with Jason Conroy from Iris, he also indicated that those relationships are extremely important to Iris Energy.
To be clear, Jason Conroy and Daniel and Will Roberts have been unbelievably supportive in leading the way in the Iris Energy part of the First Nation relationships. They asked me, and I was like, you know what, I'm not the boss, I'm not the owner, but from where I look at it, we absolutely should. And they're like, Brian, we want to lead the way in that area. They have been phenomenal compared to a lot of Canadian corporations. That's what I would say.
Tell us about Iris Energy, how you came to develop this partnership, and what the long-term plan is.
So you're going to hear something for the first time in British Columbia right here. The Iris Energy came along because we were floundering. Me and Brian Fry and Tim DeFore, we were working away, and Bitcoin was at $7,000, and we were trying to get different things happening, and we did this and we did that, and it wasn't working very good. And this company called Iris Energy came to us. And at that time, it was two brothers from Australia. It was Daniel and Will Roberts, Wiggle Roberts, and I hope Will sees that someday. They came and they saw what we were doing, and they put some capital up, and they bought it out. Tim DeFore and Brian Fry were part of it, but basically I owned the landed assets, and they bought it from me, and they didn't have a lot of money neither, and so I took shares in the company, and they paid some debt that we had, and they were just unbelievable guys to work with. And then COVID hit. And tried to be a company from Australia working in Canada. They tried to get here. They're like, Brian, can't you pull some strings and get us into the country? And there's lots of stuff I can do, but customs out of Ottawa, that is not my thing. So it's been just unbelievable working with them. And now they've grown and grown and grown. And that from a little town of Canal Flats is a long way in life, my friend.
So the development of Canal Flats has been pretty rapid because based on this access to clean, reliable energy, it has helped Iris position itself with a competitive advantage. How important is that?
Well, a really good example of what Daniel and Will have said to me, and Jason Conroy fits the same way. I found power in Alberta that was cheaper. but it's a fossil fuel. It's coming from coal. And the people in Alberta would say that, well, natural gas is a lot better than coal and we can do it with that, but it's still a fossil fuel. And
Right.
I remember phoning Daniel and explaining that we could get power for about 1.50 cents a kilowatt hour cheaper, which is about 20% cheaper. And Daniel, Brian, we can't do it. We're only going to do green. We're only going to do clean power. And I can tell you that was a year and a half, 18 months before Elon Musk said the same thing. Elon Musk tweeted that, and it changed the world kind of. It's when China shut down. Daniel Roberts said that a year and a half before Elon Musk. That's what I would tell you. We are adamant that we're using only clean power, and so that's what we're doing.
Why is that so important in the Bitcoin mining environment?
Well, it's not, with the exception of perception to the public. Most of the Bitcoin mining that's done in the world is still not being done that way. I believe that Daniel and Will are visionary. I believe Jason Conroy is visionary. I believe that makes Iris visionary, and public perception is swinging more and more to that way. And it's all about reducing your carbon footprint, right? It's all about pollution and trying to keep climate under control, and it's all that.
What is the amount of electricity that the Canal Flats facility is drawing?
Today, I saw the July report this morning, so I haven't seen the August report yet, but the July report was we were running 12 megawatts of power, and that's about 1,500, 4,500. That's maybe 15,000 servers, that little servers like this that are running in there. And that is, I believe we're at making 52 Bitcoin a month right now, and we will be at 30 megawatts in the month of October, so 30 megawatts of power.
30 megawatts, because
Yep.
you're continuing to expand the facility.
We are, and the maximum we can go there in Canal Flats will be maxed out by October with 30 megawatts. But we're already building in Mackenzie, we're already working in Chetwynd, we're already working, we've got many sites going now, so.
So why places like Mackenzie, Chetwynd, and so on, and why not closer to, let's say, the Lower Mainland in Vancouver?
I'm from Vanderhoof, not Vancouver. I would tell you that what we've went after is sites where BC Hydro has a surplus of power. So if you start with the Columbia Treaty that you talked about, and if you go to Micah Dam in Revelstoke, and then you go up to the Peace Dam, and with Site C coming on, we look for where there's excess of power over the next 25 years. And what we're doing is building out infrastructure. You know, many people ask me about Bitcoin. I don't know what Bitcoin is. Honestly, I still am a little bit confused at my age about what Bitcoin is. But what I do know is if Bitcoin fails or not, we've built out all the electrical infrastructure to do data. And what I will guarantee you is every time you buy a new phone, it uses twice as much data as it used to for fancier pictures and if it's exponential, the growth of power, the use of power. 50% of the power in the world now is used for data. It's just unbelievable, right? So we know that whether Bitcoin works, right now it's very good for cash flow, but whether it works or not, we've got an unbelievable electrical infrastructure built out in the province with all clean power.
And it's that clean power that gives BC this advantage, because it...
100%. It's mind-boggling, and I don't believe for a minute that was W.A.C. Bennett's vision. I'm a very proud guy about W.A.C. Bennett. No problem. He was a visionary guy. He opened the North with the BCR. But it's unbelievable how that's turned out to be a visionary thing. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, and so that gives that unique advantage. But also, it's bringing a tremendous amount of work to a wide range of people in different communities. Like if you take a look at Canal Flats, and I went out there and took a look at it, you know, how many people you have working here? You know, electricians all over the place.
Yep.
And it's that ability to be able to work with electricity also that makes this possible.
Yeah, for sure. If you look at my history, it's trades. We've done, 500 tradesmen in the province. I'm a certified welder and a certified millwright, and I believe there's enough people protecting professional jobs in universities, and I'll rather stay a little bit lower than that and work with trades guys and with real people with real jobs in small towns like Canal Flats. And we are so proud of our relationship. If you look in that valley and you look at Radium, Invermere, Fairmont, That's more about Calgary's playground and about resort communities and weekend stuff. And we need somebody to keep the industrial heartland type of jobs going. And so that's what I've decided is my calling, is to make sure that a town like Canal Flats still has real jobs where a person can have a wife and 3 kids and a house and afford to live.
Yeah, it's a beautiful area to be
Beautiful
in.
part of the world.
But so is Chetwynd and
Yep.
Mackenzie. I mean, those are
Yep.
unique environments as well that had relied so heavily on forestry in the past. And so to be able to diversify that economy also becomes an important component as we move forward in BC.
I'm born and raised in the forest industry. It's all I've done. And the diversification of the forest industry today that's happening as Fort Nelson OSB shut down, Chetwynd pulp mill shut down, Mackenzie sawmills are shutting down, Mackenzie pulp mill shutting down. There's an awful lot of that out there, but there's still all these trees. And so finding a new value and a new way to work with the forest is a high priority. And there's good people in Victoria working on that right now. It's an apolitical issue, and there's corporations working on it, and I will certainly be a part of that, and that's what you're seeing in Canal Flats. We not only have the data center there, we have a fab shop there that's making steel for going to jobs that are in America because of the proximity to the border. We have the Iris has a fab shop there that's already, I walked in there last week and I already saw frames that are going to Mackenzie. And they're just starting to pour the concrete in Mackenzie for a 50 megawatts. So that's 30 in Canal Flats and so just about double in Mackenzie. So, and again, Mackenzie is a struggling town.
So what's the build-out timeline in Mackenzie before you'll be operational?
1 year, a year
Yeah.
from today, 2022, Q4, I would say 2022, so fourth quarter 2022, so a year and a bit.
Yeah, to see the speed with which you brought that entire operation up in Canal Flats, and that it is now playing a role in manufacturing all of the elements that you need to build out in these other communities, it's quite extraordinary.
Well, the extraordinary part is the group of young guys that engineered that. We did pod 1, then we did pod 2, then we did pod 3. And then each one changed a little bit, then we made pod 4 and we got it. And so now that's replicable. And I would say that if Daniel or Jason were on the phone or Will were on this call, they would tell you that in our experience, we have the best in North America of engineering, and it's from practically making mistakes on pod 1. And it's like, oh, I can't believe we did that. And then still having the capital and the will to do pod 2 and pod 3 and get to pod 4 where we believe we've got it. We believe that our 4th attempt at what we're doing there is just unbelievable. And we believe that's replicable throughout Mackenzie.
And so it is that design that becomes part of your IP advantage as
Without
well,
a
doesn't
question.
it?
Without a question. And that's done by a young UBC engineer that lives in Fairmont Hot Springs. And it's a very cool story.
Well, when I went there, it was like, yes, you can look at it from the outside, but no, you can't go in.
Yeah. Well, it's IP, right?
Yeah.
Without a question, Daniel and Will would tell you from Sydney, Australia, that they can't believe in Sydney, Australia, what they've heard that other people are doing to get into Canal Flats and look at it.
It looks to me like I got a good enough glimpse to go, this looks like something from a sci-fi movie.
It's amazing. It is just, that's exactly how I look when I walk into it, is it looks like the most modern technology in the world, as good as anything in the world. It's really cool. It's amazing.
And designed here in BC.
And designed in British Columbia.
So can you envision taking this model anywhere else, or do we just stay in BC because of this BC advantage?
We will always use renewable energy. Wind, water, solar. That would be what I would call renewable energy. We need to have data centers other places in British Columbia. So I spend enough time talking to Daniel and Will that I know, and Jason, and I know for sure that British Columbia will always be a big part of their plan. So those guys are very happy, and Australians and British Columbia people have always got along good. So,
well, you mentioned earlier this, should Bitcoin, for whatever reason, have a change in course and whatnot, you have the infrastructure now to be able to offer cloud service data storage.
Movie rendering, pictures, data storage. There's many things that electricity could be used for, and we've already reduced the voltage down to where it has to be. There's a lot of money spent in going from a 69 kVA line, those big lines you say, up down to where you can plug something in. That's a lot of money. Half the money is in that right now.
Because growing down the
Staging
grid.
it, stepping it down, yep.
So you envision a bright future for this whole sector, not just in Bitcoin, but in so many other applications because of what BC has to offer.
Both in British Columbia, in BC Hydro, as well as with First Nations. I think that as a person who probably works with First Nation, and I see if I'm in a Soyuz or West Bank or Squamish, and I see the geographical advantages certain bands have, there's other bands that have the advantage of being close to power. And so I believe there's room that this could be quite a big First Nations issue in British Columbia. Slowly, as you see the Morgan Stanleys of the world and the JP Morgans of the world and the banks starting to accept it, slowly we'll see this getting better and better. And slowly but surely, this is going to develop into a big thing in British Columbia without a question because of the clean power.
Well, I am impressed that you were able to see this opportunity when it first presented itself to you, and that you're realizing it not just for you and Iris Energy, but for what it brings to all these other communities around the province.
Yeah, I whether I'm in Fort Nelson or Chetwynd or Mackenzie or Vavenby, which shut a mill down, or Castlegar or Cranbrook or Canal Flats, it's all the same to me. It's towns that are being having to change, having to figure out how to adapt, and it's fun. And after they get through the initial part about being pissed off or bothered by it, they very quickly are, okay, what are we going to do? And I see that spirit all over British Columbia, and I love it.
Yeah, well, congratulations. Thanks for coming in and having this conversation with me.
Have a good day.